The church bell rang, signaling the start of my nephew's christening, but the sound of my father's voice, shouted so violently that it echoed off the stone walls, cut through the peaceful air like a knife. "You're cut off," he yelled, pointing a trembling finger at me. The entire room of guests froze mid-conversation. Wine glasses paused halfway to lips. My stepmother Veronica's smirk, barely concealed behind her glass of champagne, was enough to send a wave of nausea through me. The shame crashed over me like a tidal wave. The humiliation burned my cheeks. In front of everyone, distant cousins, family friends, church members, my father had just publicly disowned me. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe properly. My hands started shaking at my sides. What did I ever do to deserve this kind of public execution? And then it hit me like a lightning bolt. He didn't know. He had absolutely no idea I was the one who silently held all the cards. I owned the mortgage on his precious house. The very house he bragged about to everyone. My lips trembled, but I refused to let a single tear fall. Not here. Not now. Not in front of these people. I simply stood there frozen and stared back at him, my thoughts colder than winter ice. My name is Elena Torres, and I'm 32 years old. I work as a commercial property analyst for a major investment firm in downtown Seattle. The work pays well, extremely well, actually. 6 figures with bonuses that most people only dream about. I live alone in a modern loft apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the waterfront. My life looks perfect from the outside. Successful career, financial independence, my own space. But behind that polished exterior lies a complicated history with my family. A history that started crumbling the day my mother died 7 years ago. That's when everything changed. That's when I became invisible in my own father's life. My father, Vincent Torres, remarried within 18 months of Mom's death. Veronica swept in like a hurricane, bringing her golden child, my half-brother Kyle, into our lives. Suddenly, I wasn't the daughter anymore. I was the outsider. The reminder of his past life. The inconvenience that didn't fit into their new perfect family portrait. They moved forward without me, and I learned to survive in the shadows of their happiness. But surviving in shadows teaches you things. Important things. Things about patience, strategy, and perfect timing. After Mom's funeral, I watched my father sit in the front row of the church, barely shedding a tear. Veronica sat beside him, her hand resting on his knee, whispering in his ear with theatrical concern. The performance was flawless. But it was never just the acting that hurt me so deeply. It was the way he pretended I didn't exist whenever they were around together. At the reception following the burial, relatives came up to offer condolences. My father accepted them with Veronica at his side, introducing her as his rock during this difficult time. Meanwhile, I stood alone by the dessert table, invisible. My own mother's funeral, and I was treated like hired help. Uncle Marcus was the only one who seemed to notice. He pulled me aside near the end of the reception and said, "Your mother would be heartbroken to see this." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. After that day, I made a decision. I would never beg for my father's attention again. I would never compete for his love. Instead, would focus on building my own life, my own success, my own future. I threw myself into my career with obsessive focus. The next few years passed in a blur of promotions and achievements. I climbed the corporate ladder faster than anyone expected. My bosses praised my analytical skills, my attention to detail, my ability to spot investment opportunities others missed. By age 28, I was managing a portfolio worth over $50 million. I bought my loft apartment with cash. No mortgage, no debt, complete ownership. Financial freedom felt like the only real power I had. Meanwhile, my father's life seemed to be thriving too. Or so everyone thought. He posted constantly on social media about his beautiful home and his amazing family. Photos of Veronica and Kyle filled his feed. I appeared in exactly 3 photos over 5 years, always on the edge of the frame, cropped out in most versions. The exclusion was surgical and deliberate. Family dinners happened without me. Holiday celebrations continued as if I didn't exist. Birthday parties for Kyle received weeks of planning and hundreds of dollars in decorations. My birthdays passed without so much as a text message. The message was clear: I didn't belong in their world anymore. So I stopped trying to fit in. I built my own world instead. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March, unseasonably cold and rainy. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my personal phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Elena Torres?" a professional female voice asked. "Speaking. My name is Patricia Kemp. I'm a senior mortgage broker with Northwestern Financial Services. I'm calling regarding a unique investment opportunity that might interest someone with your portfolio." I leaned back in my chair, suddenly very interested. Patricia explained that a property mortgage was being sold due to the original lender's bankruptcy proceedings. The homeowner had been making payments through a subsidiary company that was now liquidating assets. They needed to sell the mortgage quickly to settle creditor claims. "The property is a 4-bedroom colonial in Bellevue," Patricia continued. "Current market value approximately $900,000. Outstanding mortgage balance is $475,000. The homeowner has excellent payment history. This is essentially a guaranteed return with zero risk." She paused. "The address is 2847 Maple Ridge Drive." My breath caught. I knew that address. I knew it very well. It was my father's house. I sat in stunned silence for at least 10 seconds. Patricia cleared her throat. "Ms. Torres? Are you still there?" "Yes," I managed. "I'm here. Can you email me the details?" "Of course. I have your information from our initial research. You should receive everything within the hour." After hanging up, I stared at my computer screen without seeing it. The universe had just handed me the most perfect opportunity imaginable. Or was it revenge? I couldn't tell the difference anymore. My father had spent years treating me like I was worthless, like I was nothing. He bragged endlessly about his beautiful home, his smart investments, his success in real estate. He told everyone who would listen how he worked his fingers to the bone to provide for his family. But here was the truth: he didn't actually own that house. The bank did. Or more specifically, whoever bought his mortgage would own it. And that someone could be me. I opened Patricia's email the moment it arrived. I read through every page of documentation twice. The mortgage was legitimate, the terms were standard, and the price was actually below market value for such a purchase. This was a solid investment by any measure. The fact that it was my father's house was just an incredibly ironic bonus. I called Patricia back within 2 hours. "I want to move forward with the purchase." "Excellent," she said. I could hear the smile in her voice. "I'll begin preparing the paperwork immediately. We can close within 2 weeks if you're able to provide proof of funds. I can wire the money tomorrow." "Perfect. I'll send over the purchase agreement this evening." The transaction moved forward with remarkable speed. I provided bank statements, signed documents, and transferred $475,000 from my investment account. The whole process felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body. On a gray Friday afternoon in early April, I received the final email from Patricia. "Congratulations, Ms. Torres. As of today, you are the official mortgage holder for the property at 2847 Maple Ridge Drive. The homeowner will continue making monthly payments to your designated account. All documentation has been filed with the county." I sat back in my office chair and exhaled slowly. I now held the mortgage on my father's house. He had no idea his estranged daughter was essentially his landlord. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and he was totally oblivious. For the first time in years, I smiled a genuine smile. I didn't tell anyone about the mortgage purchase. Not my coworkers, not my friends, not even Uncle Marcus. This information was too valuable to share. It was my secret weapon, tucked away safely until I needed it. Life continued as normal on the surface. I went to work, managed my properties, lived my quiet life. My father continued his social media performance, posting photos of family barbecues and weekend getaways. Veronica commented on everything with excessive enthusiasm. Kyle, now 24 and working at a car dealership, posted gym selfies and party pictures. They looked like the picture-perfect American family. Meanwhile, on the 15th of every month, a payment of $2,300 appeared in my designated mortgage account. My father's money, transferred automatically, flowing directly to me. He had no idea who was receiving those payments. The mortgage company handled everything through their system. My name never appeared on his statements. He simply knew he was paying Northwestern Financial Services, like always. The irony was delicious. Every month, he was literally paying me while simultaneously pretending I didn't exist. The arrangement was almost poetic. Summer arrived, hot and dry. Seattle sweltered under unusually high temperatures. I spent my weekends at the apartment pool, reading investment reports and sipping iced coffee. In July, I received an unexpected text from Kyle. "Dad wants you at Sunday dinner. Veronica insists. Don't embarrass us by not showing up." The message was so typical of how they communicated with me. No please, no warmth, just demands and implied threats. I stared at the text for several minutes, debating my response. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely. But another part, the part that was curious and strategic, wanted to see them. I wanted to sit at their table, in their house, knowing what I knew. "What time?" I texted back. 6. Don't be late. Sunday evening, I drove to Bellevue in my sleek silver sedan. The house looked exactly as I remembered, white colonial with black shutters, perfectly manicured lawn, flower beds overflowing with summer blooms. The driveway held 3 vehicles, my father's Lexus, Veronica's BMW, and Kyle's truck. I parked on the street and sat in my car for a moment, gathering courage. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. Through the front window, I could see movement inside. Laughter drifted out through the open windows. They were happy in their perfect little world. Taking a deep breath, I opened my car door and walked toward the house that I technically owned. Dinner was exactly as uncomfortable as I'd expected. Veronica greeted me at the door with an air kiss that didn't actually touch my cheek. "Elena, how nice of you to join us." Her tone suggested it wasn't nice at all. My father barely looked up from his phone when I entered the dining room. Kyle was already seated, scrolling through his own device. "Sit down," my father said, gesturing vaguely toward an empty chair. Not "hello," not "good to see you," just a command. I sat. The table was set beautifully with Veronica's expensive china and crystal glasses. A roasted chicken sat in the center, surrounded by side dishes that looked like they came from a cooking magazine. "This looks wonderful," I said, attempting conversation. Veronica smiled tightly. "I do try to maintain certain standards." The implication was clear, unlike some people. We began eating in tense silence. The only sounds were silverware against plates and ice clinking in glasses. Finally, my father spoke. "Kyle got a promotion at the dealership. Sales manager now." "Congratulations," I said to Kyle. He shrugged without looking up from his phone. "Yeah, it's whatever." "We're very proud," Veronica added, reaching over to squeeze Kyle's arm. "He's worked so hard." I bit my tongue, remembering all the times my own achievements went unacknowledged. The dinner conversation continued in the same pattern. My father and Veronica discussed Kyle's accomplishments, their upcoming vacation to Hawaii, and the new furniture they were considering for the living room. I might as well have been invisible. Nobody asked about my work, my life, or anything about me. I was simply a body filling a chair at their table. After the main course, Veronica served dessert, some elaborate chocolate cake from an expensive bakery. As we ate, My father suddenly looked directly at me for the first time all evening. So, Elena, when are you going to settle down? Find a husband? Give us some grandchildren? The question caught me off guard. I'm focused on my career right now. Still? Veronica's eyebrows raised dramatically. You're 32 years old. Your biological clock is ticking. I'm financially stable and happy with my life, I replied calmly. My father snorted. Money isn't everything. Family is what matters. Right, Veronica? She nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. Family comes first. The hypocrisy was stunning. These people who had excluded me from their family life for years were now lecturing me about family values. I set down my fork carefully, fighting the urge to say something I'd regret. I should probably go, I said, standing up. Thank you for dinner. My father frowned. We're not finished here. I have an early morning tomorrow. I grabbed my purse and headed toward the door. Behind me, I heard Veronica whisper something to my father. His response was loud enough for me to hear. She's always been difficult. August turned into September, and I didn't hear from my father's family again. The silence was familiar and expected. I threw myself deeper into work, managing more properties and closing bigger deals. My boss, Harold, called me into his office one afternoon. Elena, I'm promoting you to Senior Vice President of Acquisitions. Effective immediately. I stared at him in shock. Harold, I don't know what to say. Say yes. You've earned it. Nobody in this company has your instincts for good investments. The promotion came with a substantial raise and a corner office with stunning views of Elliott Bay. I was now one of the youngest SVPs in the company's history. This was the kind of achievement I'd dreamed about since college. That evening, I called Uncle Marcus to share the news. He was the only family member who still treated me like I mattered. Elena, that's incredible. His voice boomed through the phone. Your mother would be so proud. Thanks, Uncle Marcus. That means everything. Have you told your father? I laughed bitterly. No. Why would I? Because he should know. He should see what you've accomplished. He doesn't care about my accomplishments. He never has. Uncle Marcus sighed heavily. I know Vincent has been difficult since your mother passed. But he's still your father. He stopped being my father years ago, I said quietly. October arrived with falling leaves and cooling temperatures. I was working late one evening when my phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered. Ms. Torres, this is Patricia Kemp from Northwestern Financial. We spoke several months ago about the Maple Ridge property. Yes, I remember. Is there a problem? Not exactly. I'm calling to inform you that the homeowner has submitted a request to refinance the mortgage at a lower interest rate. As the current mortgage holder, you have the option to approve or deny this request. I leaned forward in my chair. What happens if I deny it? The current terms remain in place. The homeowner would need to continue making payments at the existing rate. This was interesting. My father was trying to lower his monthly payments, probably to free up money for their Hawaii vacation or Veronica's shopping habits. And I had the power to stop him. What's the refinance rate he's requesting? I asked. He wants to drop from 4.5% to 3.2%. That would reduce his monthly payment by approximately $400. $400 less flowing into my account each month. But more importantly, $400 less stress on his budget. I made my decision quickly. Deny the request. Patricia paused. Are you certain? The homeowner has perfect payment history. I'm certain. The current terms are acceptable. No refinancing. I'll process the denial and notify the homeowner within 24 hours. After hanging up, I sat in the dark office, city lights twinkling below. I just blocked my father's attempt to improve his financial situation. It felt powerful and petty at the same time. 2 days later, Kyle texted me. Family dinner Sunday. Be there or Dad will be pissed. Another command disguised as an invitation. I almost declined, but curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see my father's reaction to the denied refinance. Maybe he'd mention it. Maybe I'd see frustration crack through his usual cold demeanor. Sunday arrived gray and drizzly. I drove to Bellevue with classical music playing softly through my speakers. The house looked darker somehow, less welcoming than before. Veronica answered the door wearing what looked like a new designer dress. Elena. Come in. Her smile was strained. Inside, the atmosphere was noticeably different from my last visit. My father sat at the dining table with papers spread in front of him, his expression thunderous. Kyle lounged on the couch, playing a video game with the volume too loud. Vincent, your daughter is here, Veronica announced. My father looked up, his jaw tight. Sit down. We need to talk. I sat carefully, my instincts screaming that something was wrong. Veronica took the seat beside my father, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Kyle paused his game but didn't join us at the table. I'm going to make this brief, my father began, his voice clipped and angry. This family has certain standards and expectations. Lately, you've been failing to meet them. I stared at him, genuinely confused. What are you talking about? You barely show up when we invite you. You don't contribute to family events. You're distant and cold. Veronica nodded along with every word. We've tried to include you, Elena, but you make it so difficult. The absurdity of the accusations left me speechless for a moment. They invited me to maybe 3 dinners a year, ignored me when I did attend, and never acknowledged my existence otherwise. And somehow I was the problem? I've been busy with work, I said carefully. Too busy for family? My father's voice rose. Your brother makes time. He comes to every dinner, every event. Why can't you? Kyle lives 20 minutes away. I live in Seattle. Excuses, Veronica muttered. My father stood up, gathering his papers aggressively. I don't have time for this nonsense. We have real problems to deal with. What problems? I asked, genuinely curious. Nothing that concerns you, he snapped. But Veronica couldn't resist elaborating. The bank denied our refinance application. Some ridiculous technicality. Now we're stuck with higher payments when we could be saving money. I kept my expression neutral, fighting the urge to smile. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? My father's face reddened. It's a disaster. We had plans for that extra money. Now everything's on hold because some faceless banker decided to be difficult. The irony was exquisite. I was the faceless banker. I was the reason for his financial stress. And he had no idea he was complaining to the very person responsible. The dinner continued awkwardly. Veronica served pot roast that was overcooked and dry. Kyle finally joined us at the table, contributing nothing to the conversation except grunts and one-word answers. My father remained in a foul mood, stabbing at his food and muttering under his breath about banks and bureaucracy. The system is designed to keep successful people down, he said at one point. They don't want regular folks like me getting ahead. I bit my lip to keep from laughing. My father considered himself regular folks, despite his Lexus, expensive house, and designer-wearing wife. Maybe you should try a different lender, I suggested innocently. Already did. Same answer everywhere. Apparently, the current mortgage holder has some kind of exclusive right to deny refinancing. It's corporate greed, pure and simple. Veronica reached across the table to pat his hand. Don't let it ruin your evening, honey. We'll figure something out. After dinner, I helped clear the plates, more out of habit than kindness. In the kitchen, Veronica cornered me by the sink. You know, Elena, your father is under a lot of stress. The least you could do is be more supportive. Supportive how? I asked. Be present. Show some family loyalty. Stop being so selfish with your time. The accusation stung, despite coming from someone whose opinion I didn't value. I have my own life, Veronica. My own career, my own responsibilities. She sniffed. Some things are more important than careers. Family, for instance. November arrived with the first serious cold snap. Thanksgiving was approaching, and I dreaded the inevitable dinner invitation. Sure enough, Kyle texted, "Thanksgiving at our place. 3 p.m. Bring a side dish." I considered refusing, but Uncle Marcus called a few days later. "Please come to Thanksgiving, Elena. I'll be there, and I'd like the company. Your father's crowd isn't exactly my favorite group." "You're going?" I asked, surprised. Vincent specifically invited me this year. First time in ages. I think Veronica is trying to present some kind of united family front. The thought of Uncle Marcus suffering alone through Thanksgiving with my father's family convinced me to attend. "Okay. I'll be there. For you." Thanksgiving Day was cold but sunny. I made a sweet potato casserole, one of my mother's recipes, and drove to Bellevue. The house was decorated with fall wreaths and harvest displays. Several cars filled the driveway, suggesting more guests than usual. Inside, I found not just the core family but also several of my father's friends, some of Veronica's relatives, and Uncle Marcus looking uncomfortable in a corner. "Elena." Uncle Marcus pulled me into a warm hug. "Thank God you're here." I was drowning in small talk about golf and stock portfolios. I laughed and handed him my casserole to put in the kitchen. The house was warm and smelled like roasted turkey. Everyone seemed to be having a good time, drinks flowing freely, laughter echoing through the rooms. My father held court in the living room, telling stories about his early career. Dinner was served buffet style, with everyone loading their plates and finding seats throughout the house. I ended up at the formal dining table with Uncle Marcus, Kyle, and a few of Veronica's cousins I'd never met. The conversation flowed around me without much input required on my part. I was grateful for the anonymity. After the main course, my father stood up and tapped his wine glass for attention. "Everyone, I want to make a toast." The room quieted down. Veronica beamed at him from her seat. "I'm thankful for many things this year," my father began. "My beautiful wife, who makes every day brighter. My son Kyle, who's building an impressive career. My friends and extended family, who support us always." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. His eyes passed over me without acknowledgement. "I'm thankful for this house, which represents years of hard work and smart decisions. I'm thankful for financial security and the ability to provide for those I love." Uncle Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside me. I kept my expression carefully neutral. "And I'm thankful," my father continued, "for the wisdom to know who truly belongs in my inner circle. Family isn't just blood. It's loyalty, respect, and shared values." He raised his glass. "To family." Everyone echoed the toast and drank. Except me. I set my glass down untouched, my appetite completely gone. The message was clear: I didn't belong in his inner circle. I didn't share his values. I wasn't really family. The rest of Thanksgiving passed in a blur. I helped clean up mechanically, barely registering conversations happening around me. Uncle Marcus found me in the kitchen, drying dishes alone. "That was cruel," he said quietly. "Even for Vincent." "It's fine. I'm used to it." "You shouldn't be used to it. You're his daughter. He should be proud of you." I shrugged, unable to find words that didn't sound pathetic. Uncle Marcus hugged me again before I left. "You're worth more than he sees, Elena. Don't forget that." I drove home through empty streets, most families still gathered together for the holiday. My apartment felt especially quiet when I walked in. I changed into comfortable clothes and sat by the window, watching the city lights reflect off Elliott Bay. My phone buzzed with a text from Kyle. "Dad wants you at Derek's christening next month." It's important, so don't flake. Derek was Kyle's newborn son, my nephew, technically, though I'd never been invited to meet him. A christening was apparently significant enough to require my presence, though the birth itself hadn't warranted even a phone call. I didn't respond to Kyle's text. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked my mortgage account. My father's December payment would be due in 2 weeks. Like clockwork, his money would flow into my account while he continued treating me like I was worthless. The contradiction would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. December arrived with holiday decorations appearing throughout Seattle. My office building lobby featured a massive Christmas tree, and Starbucks released their seasonal drinks. I threw myself into year-end work, closing several major deals and exceeding all my annual targets. Harold praised my performance during our final quarterly review. "Elena, you've had an exceptional year. The board specifically mentioned your contributions at our last meeting." "Thank you, Harold. I appreciate the recognition. We're increasing your bonus by 30%. You've earned it." The bonus alone was more money than my father's annual salary. I thought about mentioning this to him, about finally having something he couldn't ignore or diminish. But what was the point? He'd find a way to make it about Kyle's potential or lecture me about how money wasn't everything while enjoying the financial security his house represented. The house I owned the mortgage on. The week before the christening, I received a formal invitation in the mail. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, the whole elaborate presentation. Inside, along with the service details, was a handwritten note from Veronica: "Family is expected to attend. This is important to Vincent." Not "please come" or "we'd love to see you." Just another command disguised as an invitation. I almost skipped it entirely. I had legitimate work obligations and a dozen valid excuses. But something pushed me to attend. Maybe curiosity. Maybe stubbornness. Maybe just the need to witness their perfect family performance one more time before I decided what to do with the information I held. The christening was held at an old stone church in Bellevue, the same church where my mother's funeral had taken place years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me as I walked through the familiar doors. Inside, the church was decorated with white flowers and candles. Guests filled the pews: family members, friends, co-workers, neighbors. Everyone dressed in their Sunday best, smiling and chatting. I slipped into a pew near the back, hoping to observe unnoticed. Uncle Marcus spotted me and waved from several rows ahead. He looked relieved to see me. The service began with organ music and the priest's welcoming remarks. Kyle and his girlfriend Amanda stood at the front, holding baby Derek in an elaborate christening gown. Veronica and my father sat in the front row, beaming with grandparent pride. The priest talked about family, tradition, and raising children in faith. It was a beautiful ceremony, objectively speaking. Baby Derek slept peacefully through most of it, only fussing slightly when water was poured on his head. After the service, everyone moved to the church hall for a reception. Tables were laden with catered food, elaborate cake, and a champagne fountain. Veronica had clearly spared no expense. I grabbed a glass of punch and found a quiet corner, watching the celebration from a distance. Uncle Marcus joined me quickly. "Quite a production," he observed. "Veronica loves a good show. How much do you think this cost?" I asked. He whistled low. "Several thousand, easily. Maybe more with the catering and flowers." We stood together, watching my father work the room like a politician. He shook hands, clapped backs, laughed loudly at jokes. Veronica circulated with baby Derek, showing him off to admiring relatives. Kyle accepted congratulations with his typical lack of enthusiasm. "You know what bothers me most?" I said quietly to Uncle Marcus. "He's so happy with them. So proud. I never saw him like this when I was growing up." "Your mother balanced him out," Uncle Marcus replied. "She saw you, even when he didn't. After she died, he lost that perspective. He gained a new family and forgot about his old one. He made choices. Poor ones. But Elena, you can't let his choices define your worth. Before I could respond, my father's voice boomed across the hall. Everyone, gather around. I want to say a few words. The crowd moved closer, forming a semicircle around where he stood. Veronica joined him, still holding Derek. Kyle and Amanda stood nearby, looking uncomfortable with the attention. Today is a special day, my father began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. My grandson's christening. The continuation of our family legacy. He paused, smiling at the baby. I'm blessed to have a strong family. A loving wife, a successful son, and now a beautiful grandson. Uncle Marcus tensed beside me. I felt the familiar ache in my chest, the one that appeared every time my father pretended I didn't exist. But family isn't automatic, my father continued, his tone shifting. It requires respect, loyalty, and commitment. It requires putting the family first, not your own selfish interests. His eyes suddenly found mine across the crowded hall. The smile vanished from his face. Some people don't understand that, he said, still looking directly at me. Some people think family is optional. That they can show up when convenient and ignore us the rest of the time. The hall grew quiet. People began turning to see who he was addressing. My face burned with humiliation. Some people, my father's voice rose, anger creeping in, disrespect this family with their absence and their attitude. Well, I'm done tolerating it. Uncle Marcus grabbed my arm, but I stood frozen. My father pointed his finger at me across the room, his hand trembling with rage. You're cut off, he shouted. The words echoed off the stone walls. You don't respect this family, you're not part of it anymore. You're cut off. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Veronica's smirk was barely concealed behind her champagne glass. Kyle looked down at his shoes. Uncle Marcus whispered urgently, Elena, let's go. You don't have to stay for this. But I didn't move. I stood perfectly still, my eyes locked on my father's angry face. Because in that moment, looking at him across that church hall, I realized something important. He had no idea what I was really capable of. He didn't know I held the mortgage on his precious house. He didn't know I'd blocked his refinancing. He didn't know his own daughter had more power over his life than he could imagine. And suddenly, the humiliation transformed into something else entirely. Something cold and clear and decisive. He wanted to cut me off from the family? Fine. I would cut him off from his house. The hall remained silent, everyone staring. My father seemed to be waiting for me to cry, to beg, to make a scene. Instead, I smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who just realized they held all the winning cards in a game their opponent didn't even know they were playing. Okay, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the silent hall. If that's what you want. I turned to Uncle Marcus. Let's go. We walked out together, leaving behind the stunned crowd. Outside, the cold December air felt refreshing against my burning cheeks. Uncle Marcus pulled me into a tight hug. I'm so sorry, Elena. That was unacceptable. Don't be sorry, I said, pulling back. He just gave me exactly what I needed. What do you mean? I unlocked my car with shaking hands. I need to make some phone calls. Can we talk later? Of course. Call me anytime, day or night. I drove straight home, my mind racing with plans. Inside my apartment, I pulled out my laptop and opened the mortgage account files. Then I called Patricia Kemp, not caring that it was a Sunday evening. She answered on the third ring. Ms. Torres? Is everything all right? I need to discuss options regarding the Maple Ridge property, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I want to know what happens if the homeowner defaults on payments. Well, after 90 days of non-payment, you have the right to initiate foreclosure proceedings. And if I wanted to call the loan due immediately? Patricia paused. That's unusual. Is there a specific reason? The homeowner has become a liability. I want to explore all my options for protecting my investment. We talked for 20 minutes, Patricia explaining various scenarios and legal procedures. By the end of the call, I understood exactly what I needed to do. The next morning, I contacted my attorney, a sharp woman named Caroline who specialized in property law. I explained the situation without the emotional details, just the facts. "So you hold your father's mortgage, and he just publicly disowned you," Caroline summarized. "That's quite a situation. Can I call the loan due?" "Technically, yes. Most mortgage agreements include an acceleration clause that allows the lender to demand full payment under certain circumstances." "But Elena, are you sure you want to do this?" I thought about years of being ignored. About being excluded from family photos. About Thanksgiving toasts that pretended I didn't exist. About being publicly humiliated at my nephew's christening. "I'm sure." "Then let's proceed carefully and legally. I'll draft the appropriate notices." Over the next 2 weeks, Caroline prepared the paperwork. We had the mortgage agreement reviewed by 2 additional attorneys to ensure everything was ironclad. Finally, 3 days before Christmas, I approved the final documents. The official notice was mailed to my father's address.